Welcome into another episode of the Faithful Dogs podcast. I am Zach DeFranco, joined by Jack Robinson and King Edward. How you boys doing today?
Doing good, doing good.
We're here.
We
Yeah,
are
we're
here.
here. We have. Can we finally say we made it? Like it's football season back officially. Like you know,
We're almost,
we're almost
almost.
there, man. Like I mean, obviously today the quarterbacks and rookies reported. I believe we're in Greenbrier, right? If I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. Yeah, West Virginia. Um, Not gonna lie, I had to look up where Greenbrier was when someone said something about it. So, but we are here. We're start off with some news that I guess some people kind of expected. Browns had to waive defensive tackle Perry Winfrey. Um, just seems like someone that couldn't get on the right track, couldn't learn. I honestly was iffy on him just based on his play alone, even after 1 year. Jack, we'll start with you. How do you feel about the situation? Obviously, without getting into too much of it, it's still an ongoing investigation, but just Perry Winfrey in general.
I mean, he came in onto this team with a lot of he was talking a lot about him wanting to really make an impact on this team, and one of the main things is that obviously, like I think a lot of us had high expectations for him. We thought that he could really come in and be a good rotational piece, or even better than that on this team, that was desperate for defensive tackle help. And unfortunately, obviously, last year he just didn't produce at all, and he already had issues with the way that he was, conducting himself on and off the field. He'd been suspended. He was told not to travel with the team multiple times. He's already been reprimanded multiple times. And I think that for a lot of us, we were under the impression that he was going to have to really show improvement to stay on the team, because obviously I think that this was like one of those situations where third strike, you're out. You don't show us that you're worth it. We're not really going to keep you on the team, because there's a chance that your actions are going to repeat themselves. You're going to do this again. Now, obviously, active investigation, innocent until proven guilty. But just the fact that you put yourself in this situation, I knew immediately that he wasn't going to make it the rest of the day.
Yeah, Eddie, how do you feel?
Yeah, he was a guy that came in. A lot of people loved him because I think when he was drafted, he did like the barking, how the dog pound. And everyone loved him, so of course he's a fan favorite, and that's good. We want to get behind rookies and stuff. He had a bunch of talent coming out. There were some mocks that had him in the second round, and I think we got him in the third. Fifth or also the fifth, so maybe it was the third. He was mocked in the third, but either way, like Jack said, a guy we thought could be a rotational piece or better, but he's just a little too immature for this. Hopefully, maybe this didn't work out in Cleveland. Hopefully, it works somewhere else. But from what we have heard of what has been alleged so far, it's not looking good for him. Even Mary Kay had a piece about when he got the concussion. He said it was on a scooter, but he really did it in the snow, driving in the snow. And he was embarrassed to admit that because he can't drive in the snow. Well, not everyone's going to be able to drive in the snow. Like if you live in the South, and you don't experience snow, then you're not going to know what you're doing. Like there's nothing to be embarrassed about, but that shows the maturity or lack thereof. It's unfortunate, but it had to happen, and hopefully the guys that Andrew Berry signed that can stay healthy, because if they're healthy, they can produce. Maybe not at a high level, but they can add depth to the defensive line. So sad for him, but I think it's a good thing for the team overall.
Yeah, you can't have that in your locker room, even if it's a young player. We're trying to build a different culture here, and with Jim Schwartz's defense, you just can't have that going into his first year with this defense. And I don't even think Jim Schwartz would have put up with it for long, regardless. Right. So, I mean, obviously, Browns fans want to say, okay, let's go sign another defensive tackle. Matt Ioannidis is still out there. You guys think there's any possibility of that still on the horizon, or do we think let's go into training camp, see what we have, and go from there?
I think that at this current state, I think that they're just going to go into training camp with the guys that they have, really just kind of see what they have at that position. Because, I mean, defensive tackle has always been an issue, and it's not like Perrion was really giving you anything anyways. So it's not like it's like a huge loss for the team in terms of talent, or at least, I guess, prospective talent based on his performance from last year. So I think that they're going to go in with the guys they have, see if any of them have progressed from last year, see if any of the I'm pretty sure that they drafted a defensive tackle this year, didn't they? Like just
Yeah, Siaki Ika.
Yeah, Siaki Ika. He was a third rounder. No, fourth rounder.
I believe it was third.
Yeah, third rounder. So I mean, they're gonna see what he can do. And I mean, I think that if we get maybe halfway through training camp and no guy has really kind of, shown to be the guy that they can rely on to be that second defensive tackle, they might go out and try to get another guy to fill that hole. But I don't think they're going to jump to do it just yet, because I think they do want to see who they have on their roster and whether or not they really need to go out and get that second guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just think they're going to get through when they're in West Virginia. I forget how it's like a week or two they're down there, 10 days or whatever it is. They're going to have just the team there. And that's what Kevin Stefanski has been talking about the past couple weeks is, the whole team's going to be there, no distractions, no having to get up for a crying kid in the middle of the night. It's just you and your teammates trying to get everything on the same page before you get into actual camp. And then there's obviously the local media, the fans. You guys have talked about going to mini camp or training camp this year. Yeah, that's just, I think after that, once they see, all right, maybe we don't have this guy isn't what we thought, maybe it is a Matt Ioannidis who has been linked to this team several times. I know I've wrote about him 2 or 3 times for Dog Pound Daily, and I know Jacob Roach has wrote about him a lot, but I think he said earlier too, he doesn't think they're going to make a move right now. It's not like a necessity, so to speak. But I do think they wait. I think, like I said, after the West Virginia trip, see how that goes, see how the Hall of Fame game plays out and what they have, and go from there.
Yeah, and obviously, like we mentioned earlier, it's just quarterbacks and rookies reporting today. It's kind of like a way to just kind of have your leader set the pace for the young guys coming into the room and everything. So there's really not a crazy amount to even really talk about. It's just kind of getting into it, what we should expect out of training camp. But to go back on that defensive tackle, I mean, with Jim Schwartz's defense, you're going to see a lot of different sets. That's why he was high on Siaki Ika. He likes those big one-tech run stoppers. So you're going to see a lot of even like Myles Garrett and Darius Smith playing stand-up inside defensive tackle sets. You're going to see that a lot with 2 edge linebackers coming off the edge. So, I mean, I honestly could see us. I agree. I think we're just going to go in with what we have and go from there. I mean, obviously, they're going to be very high on Hurst. They just signed him. Tomlinson, we just signed. Drafted Siaki Ika. I don't see the rush to sign another defensive tackle currently until you see what you have after, like Eddie said, the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
just the perfect thing for it, because like it's their extra game. They're supposed to only play 3, but they get the extra one this year. There's a lot of Browns fans there for Joe Thomas, but that just makes the most sense to me for when to evaluate things, and then they really go into like the real preseason, sort of like everyone else gets the 3 games now.
The real question is do you guys think that Deshaun's going to play in the Hall of Fame game and then not play in the 2 preseason games, or do you think he's just not playing in any preseason games at all?
My thing is, I think he'll play. I think he'll play a few drives of the last preseason game or something. That's what I personally think. I think that's how Kevin Stefanski has kind of went along with it to begin with. So even like Baker, like that year, where he got injured, he played in just the Falcons game, right? For a few
like the beginning
reps
of the Falcons game, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do with Deshaun. Last year was different because he had a chance. He was allowed to play in a preseason game, and he got a chance to play in Jacksonville. So,
yeah, I'm with you there. I think that they, maybe a series, maybe 2 series, maybe a quarter. Who knows? I wouldn't put him in too much. I get getting him in the offense in sync, but they're really not going against like first stringer, so it doesn't really matter for that.
Oh yeah. I know that obviously like not a whole game. I was just saying
no, not the whole game.
Just get a couple of reps, because I know that obviously he needed the reps last year in the preseason, and obviously he's coming off of 6 games, whole off season now, just to get him back into I guess more of a normal rhythm for a starting quarterback, where you play at least a little bit of the preseason. Obviously, after this year, if it all goes as planned, he just doesn't have to. But just because again he's coming off of a season where he was a little rusty, and he's now coming off of a full offseason program, maybe it would be a good idea just to like let him have a little bit of real time action and just see how it goes. But obviously, nothing more than like a couple of series.
Yeah, and I truly think that it could change this year. I mean, he obviously will need more reps with this offense, but in the same sense, they've been working all off season. You see it. They're not just posting videos; they're actually working, and
Yeah.
they're building chemistry together. He's getting like almost every single wide receiver with him to train with him and his quarterback trainer. So I'm personally, as long as that work continues, I'm not worried about even seeing him in the preseason at all. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I still think he'll get a few reps, probably the last game. But I'm not worried about seeing him at all.
Yeah, if I don't see him, I'm not gonna be complaining. Like it'd be cool if I'm able to. A lot of times I don't even get to see the preseason games. I'm usually not home for them because they're on like Fridays and Saturdays. It's a weird time.
Yeah.
And I just don't devote my time to the preseason games like I do obviously the regular season games. So if I even see it, like if I'm home and I'm watching it and he's in, all right, cool, that's great. Let's see what he has for. Maybe he has the backup offensive line or he has the lower guys on the receiver depth chart. The 6, 7, 8 guys. The ones that aren't going to maybe make the team. See what he has with them, and if not, then I'm cool with it too.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see him, but if he's not there, it's not that big a deal. It's preseason.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I just you saw what happened to Nick Harris last year. Like freak injuries like that is what you absolutely 100% need to avoid. Let these guys that are going out there and trying to make that one of those last roster slots, one of those last spots on our team, let them go out there and get these reps. Deshaun's your quarterback of the future. Amari Cooper is your wide receiver. Elijah Moore even, these guys are your guys. Let the guys that want to get the reps, the rookies that want to get NFL playing time down, let those guys go out there and get that experience under their belt, because this might be, for some of them, their only chance. I mean, look at Jerome Ford. We drafted him last year, and he had great reps in the preseason, and then you barely saw him in the regular season. Kelly, which I mean, I think he could be, if he gets a roster spot this year. He's been a practice squad guy, but when he gets reps, he's good. He looks really good. So I think he could be a good, talk at running back 3 this year if he has, extra reps in the preseason to show it again.
Well, I think the preseason is actually going to be really important for the running back position because it's going to kind of decide the hierarchy there. Now, obviously, we still don't know 100% maybe what they want to do with Dimitrik, whether they want him to be a running back, whether they want him to be a return guy, special teams guy. We still don't really know his future on the team. But if we're going to learn anything from the preseason, it's probably going to be like who is going to be the RB2, who's going to be the RB3, are they, and even more so, do the Browns need to go out and get another running back? Because that's also another position where people are wondering if we should maybe go to the open market, see if there's some guys that we can maybe bring in to really suit up the position behind Nick.
Yeah, and I think with Demetric Felton, I don't see how he doesn't make the roster necessarily, because he's that Swiss Army knife on this offense. And in this offense alone, this air raid offense that we're about to turn into with Deshaun and Stefanski, he likes players like that. He likes that trickery, man. So, I mean, Eddie, where do you feel on the running back room? I know you got Nick Chubb, but then after that, it's like, okay, is Jerome Ford just automatically locked in at running back 2, or is there more moves to come?
I mean, it's sort of weak right now because we don't know what Jerome Ford is. He got 8 carries, 12 yards, and then he did return a lot of kicks last year. Had some success in that area, but other than that, it's sort of weak. Before we've had Kareem Hunt the past 3 years, even last year before he started to go downhill, everyone's like, "All right, we still got the best 1-2 punch. We're good." Now we don't know what that 2 punch is. We know what the 1 is. How much he's going to run the ball this year. I don't think it depends on who's behind him at all. I just think that the air raid offense, as you said, he'll get his touches, but it's not going to be at the volume it was last year. But it's sort of, like I said, sort of weak. Like Jerome Ford, they obviously feel very highly and strongly about him. What round was he drafted in? He was a later round pick too, right?
I want to say 3rd or 4th.
So then if he does pan out this year, then Nick Chubb plays out his contract and doesn't get the third contract, then you have Jerome Ford, who's going to be next to nothing. Outside of that, I could see them again after they leave West Virginia, or maybe if one of the other running backs goes down, going out and finding someone. I don't know who's even out there anymore because I haven't looked at that in a while. But I do think Demetric Felton makes the roster as the 3rd running back, whether he is the backup or I think he'll be the 3rd running back. But then, like you said, he can play wherever. I don't think he's going to see receiving a lot unless they just kick him out during set season, just run five wide. But other than that, he's almost a lock to make the roster. And last year, I didn't know if he would make the roster after the season, just because of how he is and isn't at times.
Yeah, and then obviously you have we drafted Hassan Hall out of Georgia Tech. I'm hearing that they're pretty high on him as well. So obviously I'm not gonna say you got to see the guys play. You have to see them play, and even preseason, take it with a grain of salt because most of the time they're playing second and third stringers, fourth stringer guys. Like it's nothing really impressive. It's just their chance to go out there and get reps to see if they can earn a roster spot here or even on a different team.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys won't even make our roster. So, I mean, that running back room, yeah, I agree. It on paper, it's weak outside of Nick Chubb. You have Nick Chubb, and I mean, maybe the reason they're not really rushing to get a running back too is because you got Nick Chubb and you're going to throw the ball 45, 50 times a game possibly this year now. It's a whole different offense. It's not a game-managing quarterback offense anymore for the first time in like 4 years. So you might see Nick Chubb get less touches. He might get under 20 touches. Does that mean we go 0-17?
Well,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the statistics show if he touches the ball 20 times, you win.
Right.
Or do you just hand the ball off to him 20 times in a row in the beginning of the game, like Stefanski said? Yeah.
Well, I think it's also going to become a thing where Nick just might not get 15 touches a game because we might not. It's a completely different offensive scheme. I mean, we were run first offense and now we're a pass first offense. I would assume if by all accounts from what Kevin Stefanski's saying, this is going to be a pass first offense. No doubt about it. So I mean, Nick's going to get his touches. He's going to get his runs, but I think that they are going to try to find ways to use his ability to force teams to try to eliminate him from the run game and just open stuff up for Deshaun, and then use him in the pass game. He's going to get probably around the same amount of touches, but I think some of them are going to be passes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, and Stump Mitchell said that Chubb is a 3-down back and he's going to be a 3-down back this year. So I really do expect them to utilize Chubb more in the pass game this year, especially like obviously the screen game, but I think he will get a larger role in the pass game this year as well. And a lot of his touches, you might see it later in the game because we're going to be up a few touchdowns if everything goes to plan, So
that's the thing right there with Chubb. I think last year rushed for 302 times. If they just took that number down to 202, just the pure rushes, and then however many times he touches the ball in the passing game. If you take his rushing yards down and he still averages, his 5 yards a carry, that's still over 1,000 yards, and he's still going to rack up touchdowns. So my thing with this going all along of the new offense is, let Chubb do that and don't need to feed him as much. And then come playoff time, we know you don't need, the leading rusher to win a Super Bowl, but you'd have a fresher Nick Chubb. That's 100 less carries on his, and 100 less, hits on his body that he would have to endure. And then he's fresher for the playoffs when you need to run the ball a little bit more, control the possession a little bit more than what you would in the regular season. So I think he is a 3-down back this year. I think, they're just going to be like, all right, here. And I don't know if you guys saw the video from earlier, but he had it looked like 10 or 11.
Yeah, it was insane. The
things on the bar like that.
The bar was bending, dude.
It looked like it was a Nerf.
It looked like a pool noodle, man.
That kind of bar is made for that. I will say that kind of bar is made to bend like that. But I mean,
the fact
even with the amount of weight, he had on there, I think a normal bar would at least bend slightly, because that dude is just putting up monster weight in the gym, bro. He is working hard.
Yeah,
so that's why I'm more confident this year in Nick Chubb taking it. I don't even want to call it a reduced role because he's still going to be a major part in the offense.
Oh, absolutely.
18 to 20 rushes a game. It's going to be 10 to 12 more than likely, hopefully. And then, the latter 4 or 5 of those is probably hopefully icing the game out and, not scoring touchdowns late, because we've seen what happens when he does that.
Oh, God.
We've seen him also not score the touchdown and win. So, but yeah, it's Nick Chubb all the way. And whoever's behind him, hopefully nothing happens to Chubb, but if not, they better step up. But luckily they have one of the best offensive lines in football.
So Square Table Degenerates say Chubb might get MVP votes this year. That's how much they are using.
When was the last time a running back got MVP votes?
Adrian Peterson?
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
but I think Adrian Peterson. Yeah, Adrian Peterson was a monster. So was Chubb, but I'm just saying Adrian Peterson was.
Adrian Peterson was a whole different level of monster. It was insane.
Chubb, I don't even think he cares to be utilized like he has been in the past, dude. For the most part, last year we were about to run him into the ground, even with Kareem Hunt on the roster. Like, I truly think he doesn't care if it's 15, 16, 17 touches a game. If they're throwing the ball 40, 45 times a game and they're winning football games and they're competing to be home field advantage in the playoffs and contenders for a Super Bowl, I don't think he cares. I really don't. He's Nick Chubb. He's still gonna be on pace for over 1,000 yards, like Eddie said. So outside of that, though, like we said, like it's a big question mark, even at running back too. We don't know. We really don't know. And I wanted us to make a push for Jerick McKinnon to kind of replace Kareem Hunt as a receiving back. That didn't happen. I think he just wanted to stay in Kansas City for the most part. Obviously, who wouldn't? They're a Super Bowl team. They got Patrick Mahomes. Like, you know. Then we move our way over to wide receiver. How many wide receivers do we have right now on the 90-man roster?
At least 8.
We have a lot, man. And I know we're going to need a lot, but I think we go in. Eddie, what do you think? 6 wide receivers on the 53?
6 for sure. It might even be 7.
Yeah.
The way
Because you're going to go in with 3 tight ends, at least.
Yeah, because it's going to be Njoku, Bryant, and Akins.
Yeah.
So those 3. And then I don't know about a 4th tight end. So if they don't bring, because they have been bringing 4 tight ends the past few years, but if they don't bring that 4th tight end, I can see that being a 7th wide receiver. So then you have obviously Cooper, DPJ, Elijah Moore, and then David Bell is not going anywhere. Cedric Tillman was drafted this year. Marquise Goodwin was brought in this year. That's 6 right there. And then
and then they're bringing in that they're bringing in from the XFL.
I saw you guys share that this morning or yesterday, whatever day that was. So that's 8 right there. And then I'm forgetting someone. There's some guys from last year that are coming back, like they were practice squad guys. What's that guy's name? Darden.
Jalen Darden.
Darden.
He's there. He probably won't make the roster, but who knows? Like I really do think it's going to be 6 or 7. I don't know if Jakeem Grant makes the roster, so I don't know if that factors into it. I guess it'll depend on how he recovers from injury. But there is a lot, and I think in depth is key for this position. And if they're going to be airing it out more, then they're going to need as much depth as possible and guys that Deshaun is comfortable with. So I think 6 for sure, but maybe even 7, depending on the 4th tight end.
Yeah, and they're all going to be playing, in my opinion, a very crucial role in this offense too. Like I keep saying, you're going to see us pass the ball 40 to 45 times a game. Like it's going to be that offense now in Cleveland. Jack, so what do you think? I agree with Eddie. I think you're going to see at least 6, possibly 7. How many wide receivers do you think make the roster at the end of the day?
Yeah, I feel like 6 is really like the minimum in terms of just like when you look at the guys that we have on this roster, like you don't want to get rid of some of these guys, but like it really just does come down to like, okay, so who's the 7th guy? Like, I mean, is David Bell going to be on the team? I would assume so. Like, how high are they on Michael Woods? Do they want Jakeem Grant back? Like, there are guys who are really interesting prospects to look at because they did get some play last year, and obviously, Andrew Berry does value some of these picks, and you would think that obviously, yeah, if they signed Jakeem Grant, they brought him in. I mean, he's getting up there and coming back from an ACL tear that he had last year as a return guy. And I just don't know really if his role is that important, considering that they brought in a guy like Marquise Goodwin that could be like a burner if you really wanted it. And of course you have, just Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman and these guys that you have more stuff invested into them, that it's really difficult. I think 6 is probably safe. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go 7 because it really just comes down to how much do they value one of these, how much do they value a guy like David Bell or even like Michael Woods II over like another position player. It's really going to be an interesting thing. But I think 6 is for sure, just because I think there's just too much talent in this room to go in with less than 6.
Square Table made another good point. We don't have a fullback on this
fullback.
roster. We do not have a fullback on this roster, so that opens up a roster spot right there.
Well, I don't think we had one last year.
I don't think I think last
No,
year.
we didn't. Yeah.
The Stefanski Bear era did not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just use tight ends as fullbacks now. They don't really care about
They use Kareem Hunt as a fullback half the time as well.
Yeah. I mean, we also forgot about Anthony Schwartz, who is
he's working a lot with Watson, though. I will say that he is working a lot. He is putting in work. So I will say if he can work on his hands, guys, if he can work on his hands, he is very.
Hey guys, in year 3, if he can catch the ball, he might be a decent wide receiver.
I get it, but I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's gonna. I don't even think he makes the roster. I don't. I think we're too.
There's too many good. There's too many guys. There's too many good players.
The ball, put him at cornerback.
Oh my gosh! You know
that
might actually work,
dude. I wish he could just return, but no, apparently he can't do that either.
No, he can't.
Preston Hex asks a very good question. Who will be the toughest roster cut?
Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a really tough one.
I mean, we're talking about wide receiver, like, oh, who makes it and who doesn't. I mean, is that your answer right there? Is it one of these wide receivers, or?
Well, let me just look at it really quick, because
your defensive line's basically set. We were already kind of talking like, okay, now do we even have as much depth as we thought we did? Cornerback, you got Emerson, Ward, Newsome, AJ Green. That could be a tough position right there. We got a lot of depth at cornerback in your secondary. I think the defense, for the most part, I mean, linebacker is still weak in my opinion, but you have your players that you know are probably going to make the roster. Isaiah McGuire now is on that roster as well.
I don't see any. I don't see any big, oh gosh, I can't believe they got rid of that guy kind of cuts on the defense. Because I mean, most of these guys were just not doing it. Like our defense was depleted heavily last year. So the fact that we're getting guys back and that we've got added talent on the defense, I just don't see how. I don't see how there's any position where it's like, oh, I can't believe they actually cut that guy. At least not at the moment.
You're talking strictly just defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm just talking defensive side of the ball, because I just don't see anyone on here that obviously there's a lot of guys that are making the team, but then all the other guys at maybe even positions of need, like again we had almost no incredible D tackles, but it's not like, oh, I'm really worried about Dalvin Tomlinson getting cut, like. And if Tommy Togiai gets cut, am I really going to worry about it? No,
yeah,
it's not.
Exactly.
Like it's it's mostly just an issue of we never really had depth at those positions, anyways. So if the guys get cut, they wouldn't really be a guy that saw significant playing time that makes you feel like we've really taken a loss at that position. Like so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see anything there.
It really might be quarterback, because obviously you have Deshaun, but then you have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he's probably gonna be there. But then Josh Dobbs has played well here and there. Like
you fully guaranteed him his contract, so he's your quarterback too.
And I mean, you have Kellen Mond too.
And then Kellen Mond is there, who they claimed last year from waivers, which nobody understood at the time. And I still don't understand.
Still don't get it.
But I mean, filling out just that, because they're going to be able to take 3 quarterbacks this year. So. One of those guys going to the practice spot. So maybe that's the toughest guy. I have no idea, because unless they cut like a Demetric Felton.
Yeah, that depends on what you see in the preseason, I think, at running back, like we talked about earlier. Because if you see, okay, yeah, Jerome Ford, your running back 2, clearly, and then you say, okay, well, Kelly had a great preseason again. Do we put him on the practice squad, or do we put him at running back 3? I think it'll come down between him and Felton. Maybe Hassan Hall shows out, because I mean, that's the thing about these drafts now. When you have a loaded roster and you have to make moves like this is what good teams have to do. This is why a lot of good teams don't care about their draft picks. That's why they trade and get more veteran depth that they need to fill the holes instantly to keep their Super Bowl window open for 2 years at a time, 3 years at a time, which is what I think you're going to start just seeing with the Browns. I think personally, wide receiver off the top of my head, just because the way we were talking about it instantly is my answer, my go-to, because you have so much depth at wide receiver. You really do. And a lot of these guys, even with Watson, could look like great wide receivers, and then they go to another team and they come back to earth, because when you play with an elite quarterback, you bring out the best in your wide receivers and stuff like that. You bring out the best in people. So obviously you got Cooper, like we said, Elijah Moore, DPJ, Cedric Tillman's making this roster. I think David Bell's making this roster. I think Stefanski loves David Bell. 6 and 7, I think, are up in the air right now. I really do. And that's even if you bring 7. So I think to answer Preston's question, sorry for the long answer, but I think it's going to be wide receiver from personally right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure wide receiver is really the only position where the cut is going to be, because you just have too many like receivers that we've seen and we know that can actually produce pretty well. So yeah, I mean, like if we lose one of these guys, I think that's probably going to be the main position where you're going to see a cut that people are going to be like, oh dang, that sucks that we had to get rid of that guy. But everywhere else, I'm not really that worried about it.
I feel like if it is like Grant, or I think Grant might not make the roster just because of the new return rules.
Yeah,
I think that could be a very big possibility. I think he's strictly a return guy. Who did we mention earlier? We just signed him in the offseason. I don't know why I'm blanking right here. Eddie, you mentioned him. Marquise. Yeah.
Goodwin, yeah.
I think he's making the roster. He's
making the roster. I think
exactly. You know what I mean? So,
roster.
I mean, is that your wide receiver room right there?
I think so. I think that I had Marquise in my 6 that like I just made in my mind for that. Just like Marquise was number 6. So I think that would probably be the last guy. And then obviously then you have to guess, like, would Jakeem Grant be number 7? Would Woods the second be number 7? But that's all depends on, I guess, how much they value Michael Woods the second, and whether or not they think that they can actually use him, or if they think that they can put him on the practice squad, which I think they probably could. They could probably do that. So
I truly think right now, off the top of my head, just because you have so many heading into training camp on the 90, I think wide receiver is going to end up being the hardest cut right now. Just off the top of my head, it's way too early, to really even talk about it, because some of these guys might go out in training camp and just flop,
Yeah.
Like, look what we saw with Schwartz last year, man. Like, he couldn't even catch against air. So you might just see that again. So, and then it's like, okay, he's not making the team. So,
and now we're reaching the point where the pride factor of these picks that Andrew Berry has made over the past 3 years has to go out the window, because eventually they're gonna have to sink or swim. If his guys aren't sinking or swimming, then you gotta cut bait,
Yeah.
Because he has, and I get it, and I was thinking about this earlier, that he has a strong allegiance to the guys he drafted, and rightfully so. He's the one that put a team together to scout these guys and get different tape and see where it fits the roster. And the guys he drafted truly thought we're gonna, change the roster for the better. And guys like Schwartz and Winfrey, now that's not the case. So Schwartz, I think he's off the roster, but I'm glad he's putting in work. But that's one of those picks that Andrew Berry made. Like, oh, here's the burner for Baker. Here's the burner to keep the defenses honest. And no, in theory, on paper, that sounded great because of his speed, but that just never panned out. But we're getting to that point where some of these guys that he drafted when he initially got here are starting to go, elsewhere, because they're just not cutting it.
Also, Jacob brings up a good point. I forgot that Michael Woods ruptured his Achilles with Deshaun earlier in the offseason. So yeah, I remember reading about it and saying, oh crap, that really sucks, because I think that he was making really good strides. But that does mean that the Browns are definitely going to keep him, because they can just basically get a free roster spot with him. So he's 100% making the team. So then that really does make you wonder, do they feel like they need that 7th wide receiver actually on the roster if they have Michael Woods kind of in reserve for next year? Like, they don't have to really worry about, maybe try to store a guy on the practice squad, but
it makes you wonder even more, about Demetric Felton as well. Like you said, that could be another guy that could be a tough cut. It could be. I personally think he'll make the roster, but he could be a tough cut as well. I
If
think
he
you
does,
could.
it's just going to be running back, though. It won't be that running back / wide receiver because there's no room for him in the wide receiver
Mhm.
room.
Yeah.
So there was sort of no room for him in the running back room. So like, all right, you're sort of a gadget player. Let's put you over here with these guys.
Mhm.
And he did okay, nothing crazy. And then they're like, okay, well, we upgraded this room, so you gotta go back to your other room, and hopefully you can fit there. If not, then get your stuff out of there, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, you kind of were just using him in the slot. You were kind of using him in the pass game out of the backfield. He was kind of just everywhere. And is that going to be a role this year for him? Because I mean, if you saw early in the unpadded practices, they're using Elijah Moore like that now.
Mhm.
So this offense is very versatile. It's very deep. It's probably the best offense I've seen as a Browns fan in my
On
26
paper,
years
yeah.
of life. Yeah. Thank you. On paper, exactly. I don't want to, not yet.
I've been
Another-
mindful to do that when I haven't wrote as much on Dog Pound Daily, but I've been mindful to put that in there. That on
Mhm.
paper, this
Mhm.
roster has the capability of, making the playoffs and making a run in the playoffs. And it comes down to execution, like it always does. But a lot of people want to overlook that. So, like, all the times we hear about Stefanski running the ball on 4th and 1, and he shouldn't. Well, if they make that successful conversion, Stefanski's the genius. If not, it's not. So I always have to. I had to do this to myself to keep myself in check. On paper, the roster is loaded, but we've said that the past few years. We went out the 2 years ago, I think it was, when John Johnson came and Troy Hill and all the new defensive pieces didn't work. So while I have high hopes, I'm still trying to keep myself grounded and be like, okay, like we still got to see what it does. We can see all the videos in Miami of Deshaun and the receivers, and we can see all this other, like the early goings of camp, but we have to see it execute. So I always have to keep mindful of like, all right, this roster looks great, but it has to play good to great to succeed.
Yeah, that's true.
Another position, and we'll kind of wrap it up here because obviously, guys, like this is way too early training camp preview. Tomorrow night, Barking Browns got a 53-man roster prediction. That's going to be you won't want to miss that. Another position that could be a head scratcher, personally, on the defense side of the ball, is cornerback. You got Ward, Newsome, right? Emerson, AJ Green. He always makes a roster. He's good. He always makes the roster. I like him. Then you just drafted Cameron Mitchell. So I guess it depends, but what do you guys feel about that position? How do you feel about that? Because there was obviously rumors. They were kind of put to bed by him, the man himself, about trading Newsome. Then there are, Jack Duffin, who does a great job breaking down the salary cap, future salary cap, talks about how, no, it'll probably be Ward out the door within a year or two, So what do you guys feel about that cornerback position? Is there anyone that could be a surprise cut on that side?
Well,
obviously it's not going to be Ward. I'm not saying it's not going to be Ward.
I
It's not
mean,
going to be Newsome. It's
I
not
mean,
even going to be Emerson.
that when it comes down to it, there's 4 guys that we know for sure are going to be on the team, and that's Martin Emerson, that's AJ Green, that's Denzel Ward, that's Greg Newsome. Those are the 4 guys who I think, obviously, now could a trade for Greg Newsome happen? Maybe, but I think it would have already happened if it was going to happen.
I think so.
So I mean, those 4 guys obviously are. I don't think those guys are have any chance of getting cut unless obviously something awful happens. But everyone else, I mean, like Mike Ford is an interesting one. Obviously, they just drafted Cameron Mitchell, so I don't think that he's going to be a guy that I think he might be a guy who they give a little bit of leeway to, and maybe he's a depth player. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't really have any sort of feeling of dread that could Thomas Graham Jr. get cut. Like, it's just I'm not super worried about this room because the cornerback room has been one of like the good parts of our defense. Obviously last year they struggled a little bit, but yeah, like I don't really think that there's any cut that would concern me from the cornerback room, because I think that just the fact that you have those 4 guys, you have Emerson, Green, Newsome, and Ward, you have a lockdown room. And now, obviously, yeah, you'd love to get some of these new guys in there and have them be, really solid rotational pieces. but I don't think that anything that we've seen so far would indicate that these guys are that yet. Now, obviously, once we get into camp and maybe we see some progression from them, then maybe we can start to form some opinions on them and who we would want to see, like, or who would really suck if they got cut. But right now, I just don't really think that there's anyone there that would surprise me if they got cut.
I guess the big reason why I asked this is because obviously I personally believe Emerson plays better out wide. I do. So, and Newsome has already openly said he does not want to play in the slot.
Yeah.
So when you go from that perspective, Newsome wants to play out wide. Emerson's better out wide. Newsome was kind of using the slot, didn't like it. You know, someone has to do it. So is it going to be Mitchell? Is it going to be AJ Green? Are they going to force Emerson inside now? Is Schwartz going to work with Newsome, make him like playing in the slot now? There's a lot of question marks on that position if you really look at it.
In terms of that, yes, but I think this is like the most solid of all the positions on the roster, of like from first through fourth at least. Those guys, and they've shown they can lock down some of the elite receivers in this league. So their issue is just staying healthy. So you can count on Denzel Ward. Hopefully not this year, but history shows doesn't play a full season ever, which that's a tough position. Which that's one of the key positions you need depth for. So these depth pieces are what's going to be interesting. The guys who aren't the starters but are going to come in, and then I think how the secondary behind them plays. So the safeties, I think that's going to go a long way too. And I think how Jim Schwartz plays his defense is going to. I think you're going to see a mix and match of different guys, and I think you can see Emerson in the slot one play or one series, and then flip outside. I don't. We'll see how that happens, but I think this is like the most sure group on the roster because there's no like. You're not cutting, the four guys we mentioned, and then there's a couple guys behind that are going to try and make the roster too. So, to me, that's like the most confidence I have in this, and of the whole roster. And it's weird to say because and those questions you presented are good, but just the players themselves, I feel that that's like okay, we got these four guys. They're pretty good. They've shown that against tough competition, especially in the division against Cincinnati. They usually hold Jamar Chase in check for the most part. He doesn't really go off against us, so I'm very confident with that. But all the questions you just asked are, having me thinking now, like, oh shit, now what's going to happen? Now are they going to?
It's serious,
or is someone going to say, you know what, screw it, I'm going to be the guy inside. I'll do it.
Yeah, and it could be someone that we don't even expect. That it's like, okay, you know what? I'll show out. I'll play slot. That's my way on the roster. I get why Newsome or even Emerson don't want to. They don't get paid as much as a cornerback one or a cornerback two. It's just not the way it is on defense. So is AJ Green going to be like, I'll lock someone up in the slot? I'll play slot. Is Cameron Mitchell going to say it? I know it's a long shot, but he did it. He played safety and he came down to the slot in Ohio State. Tanner McAllister, who's on the 90 right now. There are a lot of questions. I really cannot wait to get in the training camp, get some video content, have fans get there, get the season rolling. I mean, boys, any final thoughts before we wrap it up? I mean, I know, like I said, it's way too early right now. It's just quarterbacks and rookies reporting. Friday, I believe the rest of the team reports. So any final thoughts?
Yeah, the Bengals didn't have the white helmets first. The Browns white helmets are way better. It's not even close. Let's just
I forgot to even bring that up, dude. I forgot to bring up the white helmet.
Yesterday that the Browns got the colors for the Browns from Bowling Green. I had no idea. Never
really?
would have. The one Jules girl, she's the Reds fan. She's also a Browns fan, I think. She went to Bowling Green. She posted that she knew that because she went there. I had no idea about that. I was like, oh, no shit. I could learn something new every day. Like, that was cool because the Bengals, of course, the Bengals' social media team this year is just terrible. They have not done a thing right, and it's just like, all right, keep embarrassing yourself. That's funny. It was Bowling Green that the Browns got the colors from. I did not know that because they practiced there. So that was cool.
That's interesting.
They did used to practice. They did used to practice there a lot. Yeah.
I will just say this has been probably the most boring offseason since the past few years, since I've been starting to write and podcast more about the Browns over the past few years. But that's a good thing. And I was thinking of this the past couple of days. It's such a good thing because last year, and I was talking to my buddy about this last week. All right, Watson's getting suspended. How long is he getting suspended for? Oh, it's going to be 4 games. Nope, it's going to be 8 games. Nope, it's going to be 10 games. Nope, it's going to be 5 games. Oh, he might only get 3. Oh, he might not get suspended at all. And it was just every day. You know, oh hey, Denzel Ward, does a charity event, or whoever does a charity. Oh, Deshaun Watson might not play for 10 games. Okay, but we don't have that. There's none of that nonsense happening this year. It's been so boring and such a not good way for us content creators, because I haven't wrote much of anything, and I haven't done podcasting much lately, because I'm not just going to come talk just to talk. I want to talk about something. We're talking about training things today. That's perfect.
Yeah.
But I wasn't just going to come on here and let's just think of some things that the Browns fans might want to hear. And it's so boring, but it's so good for the totality of the team, because if all the moves that they're putting in this year, and they put all their chips in last year and then solidify that this year, and that makes it so every offseason is boring, we don't have any drama, just outside of the free agency and draft that we love, then we just go in the season, just play football. It's so relaxed. It's boring. Don't get me wrong. It's boring as hell. I want something like the Perrin Winfrey news today. Okay, but I don't want that news. I want
not that type of news.
But it's been so boring, but so awesome, but not awesome at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it was last week. Me and Jack were gonna hop on. We were gonna do a show, and I'm like, "Hey, Jack, you have anything you want to talk about?" He goes, I'm like, you know what, dude? Let's not even force it right now. Let's just keep holding off. Next week we can really kind of start previewing training camp like we're doing right now, and really kind of get into it. And even today was kind of tough. I mean, we're not gonna spend an hour talking about Perrion Winfrey, who I kind of wanted off the roster to begin with. To be honest with you,
we should have spent an hour talking about white helmets, though. I think
white helmets, exactly. We should have talked about how we had them first, and the Bengals look like zebras, All right, that's what we should have talked about
first. So, and the Bengals don't have much. They don't have more success than we do as a totality of a franchise. So,
not even close, man. What do you mean? We actually have championships. We have championships. They don't.
We do.
It is fun. The AFC North rivalry is fun, and I believe it's going to be the best division in football. So
there's been some wild moments now. I was watching a reel the other night on Instagram that, the Miles hitting Rudolph, and then AB kicking the punter, and then it was a perfect lay out AB, and then Juju laid out someone on the Bengals and the Ravens.
Juju laid out perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that, man.
It's just crazy. The AFC North is a wild division. This year it's going to be even wilder, because I think any team with Pittsburgh can legitimately win it. I don't really think they can win the division. They're going to be in a lot of games because their defense is stellar. But
and they have Mike Tomlin, as a head coach.
Yeah, so they're going to get at least 9 wins probably, because they can't finish under 500 for some reason. But
it's some Blood Devil stuff, dude. I don't know what the heck he had to do to never drop below 500, but he's done something. I don't think that dude's normal.
And what I love about the division this year is we play everyone right off the bat.
Yeah.
First 4 weeks. I love it. All right, let's see where we are now. And then we'll revisit. All right, you got us this time. We're going to revisit this in a few weeks.
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, dude, week 2 is going to be one of the best Monday Night Football in terms of just in terms of the uniforms, because you have all black and all white. It's gonna be great.
I just hope Nick Carnes' cell phone is fully charged that night.
It's not gonna be
into it, because he's gonna set off some fireworks amongst Browns and Bengals fans, and I can't wait for it.
Oh, I'm sure he can't either. All right, Eddie, I appreciate you joining us today, man. It means a lot. Always love talking with you, dude. Always love talking with you. Everyone, check out the Petty Eddie podcast. Sure, he'll be back soon. Football season's ramping up now. He'll be back soon. Jack, as always, my man. See you next week.
Yes, sir. Hey, buy homage. Buy homage.
Oh, yeah. Got to. I'm waiting on my next delivery. Oh, I'm so pumped for the shirts.
Yeah, I got stuff coming in a couple of days. So
I have 4 shirts coming. They ship today, so I'm excited.
I'm so pumped.
Thank you,
pumped. Love homage. Love it. All right, boys. Thank you all. Have a good day. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Comment and sub.